Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. In this video, we will read class 8 chapter, The Summit Within. Human beings love challenges. They love to accept and beat them. But in order to beat the challenges, we have to face many obstacles, external as well as internal. Internal obstacles are those which appear in our mind, the doubts, the worries, and they are equally strong as the external ones. In this chapter, Major H.P.S. Ahluwalia, one of the team member of India's successful expedition to Mount Everest in 1965, talks about the challenges he faced before, during and after climbing the mighty Everest. Let's see and read about his experience in the chapter, The Summit Within. Summit is the highest point of a hill or a mountain. When you climb a mountain, you have to reach to the summit. But is there a summit within us as well? Let's read in the chapter. Before you read, Major H.P.S. Ahluwalia was a member of the first successful Indian expedition to Mount Everest in 1965. Expedition is a journey with a particular purpose. Here, the purpose was to scale Mount Everest. How he felt when he stood on the highest point in the world? Let us hear his story in his words. Climbing the summit and then the more difficult task of climbing the summit within. Major H.P.S. Ahluwalia was one of the members of India's first successful expedition to Mount Everest in 1965. How he felt when he was standing at the highest point of the world, what was going on inside his mind, climbing the summit, which was a difficult task, and then the more difficult task, climbing the summit within your heart, within your mind. How did he feel? Let's see his journey. There are many difficult words in the chapter, so please concentrate on each and every word. On the emotions which surged through me as I stood on the summit of Everest, looking over miles of panorama below us, the dominant one I think was humility. Surged means arose suddenly and intensely. Panorama means view of a wide area. Dominant here means strongest, and humility means being simple, modest and down to earth. So Major H.P.S. Ahluwalia says that out of all the emotions that arose in me when I stood at the highest point of the Everest and looked down to a wider area from there, the most important one, the strongest emotion was humility. Humility is being simple, being modest, being down to earth, thinking that you are a smallest creature in this huge world. So humility was the strongest emotion that he felt when he was standing on the top of Mount Everest. The physical in me seemed to say, thank God it's all over. However, instead of being jubilant means very happy because of success, there was a tinge of sadness. Tinge means trace of, a little bit of. Was it because I had already done the ultimate in climbing and there would be nothing higher to climb and all roads hereafter would lead down? Now the physical climb was over and the author wanted to say thank God it's all over. But instead of being happy because of the success, there was a little bit of sadness. And the author couldn't understand why. Was it because the final in the climbing has done? He has climbed the highest point which was possible for human to reach. And there would be nothing more to climb henceforth. By climbing the summit of Everest, you are overwhelmed by a deep sense of joy and thankfulness. It is a joy which lasts a lifetime. The experience changes you completely. The man who has been to the mountains is never the same again. The author says that by climbing the highest point of Everest, you are completely filled with happiness and thankfulness towards God. The joy, the happiness is one which lasts throughout your life, which remains throughout your life. The experience changes you completely as a person. When you go to the mountain and come back, you are not the same person. You are a changed person. As I look back at life after climbing Everest, I cannot help remarking about the other summit, the summit of the mind. No less formidable and no easier to climb. Formidable means huge, powerful, and intense. And the author says that as he looks back his life after he climbed Mount Everest, he thinks about another summit that he had to climb, and that summit was the summit in his mind, because there were a lot of things that were going on in his mind. And though that summit that he has to climb, he has to overcome in his mind, were as huge, as powerful, and as intense as climbing a Mount Everest. It was not an easy climb, the climb that was going on in his mind. Even when getting down from the summit, once the physical exhaustion had gone, exhaustion means the tiredness, the fatigue, I began asking myself the question why I had climbed Everest. Why did the act of reaching the summit have such a hold on my imagination? It was already a thing of the past, something done yesterday. With every passing day, it would become more remote. Remote means distant, far away. And then what would remain? Would my memories fade away slowly? So the author says, once the physical tiredness after climbing the mountain was gone, I started asking myself this question. Why did I at all climb Mount Everest? Why reaching the top of Mount Everest was such strong in my imagination? The thought was such strong in my imagination. Now it was a matter of past. It has already happened, and slowly the memories will go away. They will become remote. And then what will remain? Will the memories become very faint? Will they go far away? All these thoughts led me to question myself as to why people climb mountains. It is not easy to answer the question. The simplest answer would be, as others have said, because it is there. It presents great difficulties. Man takes delight in overcoming obstacles. Obstacles are difficulties that block your way. So when all these thoughts were coming, the author questioned himself, why do people at all climb mountain? And the answer to this question was not simple. And the simplest answer that people say, that people climb mountains because they are there. And it presents great difficulties, great obstacles in front of human being. And human being loves challenges, as I told in the beginning. They love overcoming all these difficulties. The obstacles in climbing a mountain are physical. A climb to a summit means endurance. Endurance means the ability to bear or tolerate something. Persistence. Persistence means the fact of continuing in an opinion or course of action in spite of difficulty and determination. So when you climb a mountain, it's completely physical. It gives you completely physical exertion. When you climb a summit, when you go to a height, it means you should have a strong willpower and the ability to remain there even after failure. You should have endurance. You should have the ability to tolerate. The demonstration of these physical qualities is no doubt exhilarating. Exhilarating means very exciting, as it was for me also. So all these physical qualities of endurance, persistence, and willpower, when you have them, when you can show them, it is very exciting. It is very exhilarating. And it was the same for the author as well. I have a more personal answer to the question. From my childhood, I have been attracted by mountains. I had been miserable, lost when away from the mountains in the plains. Mountains are nature at its best. The author has more personal reasons of climbing mountain. Since his childhood, he has been attracted towards mountains and he has been miserable when he was away from the mountains in the plains. Mountains, as per him, are nature at its best. Their beauty and majesty pose a great challenge. Majesty means grandness. And like many, I believe that mountains are a means of communion with God. Communion means feeling of close relationship. So mountains have been challenging to human being, and many believe that mountains are a way of coming in close relationship with the God. Once having granted this, the question remains, why Everest? Because it is the highest, the mightiest, and has defied many previous attempts. Defied means resisted. So after answering this question, one question still remains. Why Everest? Why would anybody climb Everest? And the answer is simple, because Everest is the highest, the greatest, the grandest, and it has resisted many previous attempts. Many people who have attempted to climb Everest have failed previously. It takes the last ounce of one's energy. It's a brutal struggle with rock and ice. Once taken up, it cannot be given up halfway, even when one's life is at stake. So climbing Everest takes every bit of energy from you. It's a harsh struggle with the rock and ice. And once you take up this challenge, there is no looking back. You cannot just go to halfway and come back, even if your life is at stake. The passage back is as difficult as the passage onwards, because you cannot come back, because even if you come back, it is as challenging as going forward. And then when the summit is climbed, there is exhilaration, the joy of having done something, the sense of battle fought and won. There is a feeling of victory and happiness. And then once you climb the highest point, the summit, there is extreme happiness, the joy of having done something, the joy of fighting a battle and winning it. It's a complete victory. It's a complete happiness. That is why Everest is so preferred by mountaineers. Glimpsing a peak in the distance, I get transported to another world. I experience a challenge within myself, which can only be called mystical. Mystical means spiritual. So having a glimpse at the peak, the author gets transferred to another world. He experiences a change within himself, and the change is completely spiritual. By its beauty, aloofness, might, ruggedness. Aloofness means being alone, and ruggedness means toughness. And the difficulties encountered on the way, the peak draws me to it. As Everest did, it's a challenge that is difficult to resist. So seeing its beauty, its aloofness, its toughness, the difficulties that one faces on the way, the mountain calls the author. And it is very, very difficult to not to climb Mount Everest. It is difficult to resist it for a mountaineer. Looking back, I find that I have not yet fully explained why I climbed Everest. It is like answering a question: why you breathe? Why do you help your neighbor? Why do you want to do good acts? There is no final answer possible. And still, the author couldn't get the answer to this question: why did he climb mountain? Because it is as obvious as breathing, as helping your neighbor, as doing good acts. So there is no final answer to this question, because for the author, it's an obvious thing to climb Mount Everest. And then there is the fact that Everest is not just a physical climb. The man who has been to the mountaintop becomes conscious in a special manner of his own smallness in this large universe. And then he realizes the fact that it is not just a physical climb. The person who reaches the top of the mountain becomes aware of a special way of his smallness in the large world. He becomes aware how he is so small in front of this huge world, this nature. The physical conquest of a mountain is only one part of the achievement. Conquest means winning over, defeating. There is more to it than that. It is followed by a sense of fulfillment. There is satisfaction of a deep urge to rise above one's surrounding. So the author says that physically conquering the mountain is only one part of what you have achieved. There is more to that. You feel a deep sense of fulfillment. You feel satisfaction of rising above your surrounding. It is the eternal love for adventure in man. Eternal means never ending. The experience is not merely physical, it is emotional, it is spiritual. So this is a never ending adventure to man. And the experience of climbing Everest is not just physical, it is emotional, it is spiritual as well. Consider a typical climb towards the summit on the last heights. You are sharing a rope with another climber. You form in. He cuts the steps in the hard ice. Then he belays and you inch your way up. Belays means fix a rope. Now the author talks about the method of climbing a mountain. When you go towards a summit, you are sharing a rope with a fellow climber. You form in, you make it firm, and your fellow climber, he makes steps in the hard ice by cutting it, and then he fixes a rope, and then with the help of that rope, you come towards the mountain. The climb is grim, the climb is very difficult. You strain every nerve as you take every step. With every step, you are putting all the nerves in strain because it takes a lot of physical exertion. Famous climbers have left records of help given by others. They have also recorded how they needed just that help. So many climbers, they have kept a record of help they have needed, the help that they have been given to them by others, and they have also recorded the help that they needed. Else they might have given up. Breathing is difficult. You curse yourself for having let yourself in for this. You wonder why you ever undertook the ascent. Ascent means climb. So climbing a mountain is very difficult. Breathing is extremely difficult, and sometimes you even curse yourself why you at all took this climb. There are moments when you feel like going back. It should be sheer relief to go down instead of up. But almost at once you snap out of that mood, there is something in you that does not let you give up. So there are times the physical exertion is so much that at times you feel like giving up. You feel like just going down rather than going up because you feel that it would be a lot of relief. But once for a second when you are out of that mood, there is something that does not let you give up, and then you go ahead and you go on. Your companion keeps up with you, just another 50 feet or 100 maybe. You ask yourself, is there no end? You look at your companion and he looks at you. You draw inspiration from each other, and then without first being aware of it, you are at the summit. So you go on, you draw strength from your companion by just you are pillar to each other. You look at each other and you draw inspiration, and then without being aware of it, you reach the climb, you reach the summit. Looking round from the summit, you tell yourself that it was worthwhile. Worthwhile means worth the effort. So after such extreme physical exertion, when you reach the summit and you look around, you tell to yourself that it was worth the effort. Other silvery peaks appear through the clouds. If you are lucky, the sun may be on them. The surrounding peaks look like a jeweled necklace around the neck of your summit. Other peaks full of snow look like silvery peaks, and if you're lucky, the sun may shine on them. The surrounding peak, they look like necklace around the neck of the summit you are standing on. Below you see vast valleys sloping into distance. It is an ennobling, enriching experience to just look down from the summit of a mountain. It is a great experience to just look down from the top of a mountain. It's a beautiful sight. You bow down and make your obeisance to whichever god you worship. And standing at such highest peak, you just bow down and show your respect, your obedience to the god you worship. I left on Everest a picture of Guru Nanak. Rawat left a picture of goddess Durga. Fudorji left a relic of the Buddha. Edmund Hillary had buried a cross under a cairn. Cairn is a heap of rocks and stone in the snow. These are not symbol of conquest but of reverence. Reverence means respect. Every mountaineer has left a mark of god or goddesses which he or she respects and praise. These are not symbols of conquest or winning or defeating. These are symbols of respect. The experience of having climbed to the summit changes you completely. There is another summit. It is within yourself. It is in your mind. Each man carries within himself his own mountain peak. So the experience of climbing the mountain changes you completely. But then there is another mountain that is to be climbed, and it is the mountain in your mind. Every person carries within himself a mountain peak which is equally difficult to climb. He must climb it to reach to a fuller knowledge of himself. It is fearful and unscalable. It cannot be climbed by anyone else. You yourself have to do it. So climbing this mountain which is within yourself will give you a fuller knowledge of yourself. This mountain is also fearful, it is also unscalable, and it cannot be climbed with the help of others. You have to do it yourself. It cannot be climbed by anyone else. The physical act of climbing to the summit of the mountain outside is akin to the act of climbing the mountain within. The effects of both the climbs are the same. So the physical climbing of a mountain is as equal as climbing the mountain within yourself, in your mind. And both the climbs are equal. They are equally difficult. They are equally unscalable to a point. Whether the mountain you climb is physical or emotional and spiritual, the climb will certainly change you. It teaches you much about the world and about yourself. So whichever mountain you climb, whether the physical external mountain or the mountain within yourself, they both teach you a lot of things. They both teach you about the world and about yourself. I venture to think that my experience as an Everester has provided me with the inspiration to face life's ordeals resolutely. Ordeals means difficulties, painful experience. Resolutely means firmly. The author says that I can't think that my experience as his experience as an Everester has changed him completely. It has inspired him to face the difficulty of life firmly. Climbing the mountain was a worthwhile experience. The conquest of internal summit is equally worthwhile. The internal summits are perhaps higher than Everest. And the author concludes by saying that climbing the mountain was a worthwhile experience, was a useful, a fruitful experience. And the conquest of internal summit, climbing the internal summit, was also equally fruitful. In fact, the internal summit is higher than the Everest itself. This was the chapter by H.P.S. Ahluwalia where he has shared his experience. Now here are the question answers of the chapter, students, which I have done for you. You can go through these question answers, pause the video, write the question answers, cross-check them, and then let me know. If you have any more difficulty, you can comment in the comment section and I will answer to you. This chapter was really a deep chapter which must have made you think deeply, isn't it? Thank you for listening to the chapter, students. Bye bye for now. I will see you in my next video. Take care.